Oh, this is great. Yes. Rebecca is managing while Patricia is out on medical leave. All right, well, let's do some introductions and make sure we've got a quorum of the board members. So I'll start with the board and I'll go to my left first. Go back. You got it. Oh, you and I are sharing.
Okay, I'm Laura Beth Martin. I represent the not just the Coquille Indian tribe, of which I'm a citizen, but the tribes of Oregon.
I'm Paul Peterson, representing K-12 education.
Pacific Quinlan, and I am your public member of the school commission.
Got it already. So you turn it off so we don't get this week. So now I'll go to my right.
Operations manager.
In the audience, we have the esteemed former state senator, Arnie Roblin. I served with Arnie in the legislature together. He is going to be our newest member representing the Port Commission, but his final paperwork has not been signed by the governor. I appreciate that you came today. And you're welcome to sit up here. You just can't vote yet. Yeah, okay, great. Well, Arnie tells me he drove down from Salem this morning and I drove down from Eugene and we both encountered snow, sleet, hail, rain, and some sunshine. I actually pulled out my sunglasses just before I got to North Bend. And then promptly put them away when I got out to Charleston. All right, well, let's find out who all is here. Oh, yeah, we've got more on the screen. Thank you for reminding me about that. Cinnamon, you are on the screen.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm not there in person. My name's Cinnamon Moffett, and I'm representing the Hatfield Marine Science Center up in Newport.
All right, and then the other screen is just up, right? Okay, great. And Chris Wall is not able to join us today. She's our NOAA representative, and as you can imagine, there are things going on with federal agencies, so she's unable to get online. Okay, well, let's find out who all our folks are in the room. So Kathy is just a fabulous secretary for takes wonderful minutes for us, but also you work here at the South Slough. Introduce yourself. And we are both graduates of Reedsport High School. Christy. All right, and then right behind you, that. Napkin drones, I love that. Cinnamon, can you hear us? We need a microphone while we do this introduction part. We're just going around the room introducing the people who are here. You okay with that? Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Okay. Awesome. And we aren't under COVID, so you don't have to sit so far apart. Oh, you couldn't see the whole team. All right. Okay. And we'll go in the row behind you. There's no one on that side, so we'll start over. We'll get Sean in the when we go in the back row. Ah. Awesome. Hello, Mike. Now, Sean. Awesome. I think that's everyone today. So I appreciate y'all being here and we look forward to reading these exciting reports today. Then first thing on our agenda after the introductions would be review of the minutes. Hopefully you've all read those fine minutes and I'd take a motion to accept them. Is there a discussion, a second to approve the minutes? Well, let's see, we need discussion. Does anybody want to make anything? No. Okay, is there a second to approve? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. Those are approved. I love my gavel. I miss it, Barney. My husband made one for me too, and it's tiny like this. And I said, no, I want a big gavel. But, all right, we have, public input. This is the time. Is there anyone signed up for public testimony today? Nope. Okay. They're missing out on something great. So for the public input, I'm just gonna say that I was at my place in Mesquite last weekend and we have an elephant seal that has taken up residence on our beach at Hawk Creek. And he has decided he likes swimming in the creek and laying in the sand. He sleeps all day, he takes a little swim in the morning and barks, and then he goes and sleeps all day long. So I've been in contact with all the agencies that are involved in that. He said, what is the plan? And they're hoping he goes back out to sea. That's what elephant seals do. They learn to swim in the shallow water and then they go back out to sea. But if he waits too long, the water's not going to be deep enough unless he slaps himself on the sand all the way out to the beach. So he currently, they estimate he weighs about 300 pounds. Elephant seals, we don't usually see them here. They get between 13 and 15 feet long and 5,000 to 7,000 pounds. I don't think he's eating right now because they do go through a month-long fast. So that's why he's looking. He's really cute. So that's my public input for the day, which isn't really what we consider as public input, but I just thought you'd all like to know about that. All right, we'll go to the agenda items. We have grants and staffing updates. Who's going to give us that one? You are. You got it.
Information. The first three agenda items are going to be coming from me. And we will just kind of move through all of them. So the first one, grants and staffing updates. Management submitted 3 applications for grants back in January. That covered 2 of our large acquisitions we've been working on for several years now. One is for the Winchester Tributaries parcel, which is a common school lands parcel. We actually put in 2 applications for that. One was for the NERS specific application, and then the other one was for the coastal zone management opportunity. Then we also put in one for the Deal in Triangle Properties, which is a Coos County Forestry owned property that we've been in negotiations with Coos County for about a year and a half or so. Recently, actually just this week, I found out that NOAA is finally going through the selection process on those. They cannot award any as of yet until we get through the continuing resolution and have an approved budget on site, but they are hoping to be able to ready to pull the trigger on those awards as soon as that goes through. So they're making sure they're ready for that. Hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow. Hopefully. Let's see here. We have been working on completing the due diligence for those land acquisition processes in-house. We've actually been working with our Bend staff to get those done. Brian Cochran and John Gesner and the Bend office has been working through a lot of those due diligence tasks. South Slough did not renew its contract with Wild Rivers Land Trust at the it actually expired the end of November. So the money that we had in the budget to have them do that due diligence is transferring over and paying for payroll for Ben staff. I believe we're gonna do without at this point in time. The grant actually ends the end of November, so we're kind of running down on those processes. We only have a couple left to do.
And we terminated the grant.
Correct. Correct. Yes. I also just recently submitted our first draft for our FY 25 operations award through NOAA. And just for information purposes, our FY 25 year will start July 1 of 25 and go through June 30 of 2026. NOAA is having all the reserves plan on level funding for that, which equals $880,967. Even with a level funding, I still had to make some adjustments because we've had increased payroll costs due to cost of living adjustments. So I ended up having to reduce a lot of our services and supplies that we cover on the federal side, and those are going to have to be made up on our state side. We're hoping, crossing our fingers, that once we get through the continuing resolution and have an approved budget, we don't have any further cuts. We'll have to figure out what to do after that if there's further cuts.
For a minute, because we've had conversations with you and Patricia before she went out on medical leave, and I think some cuts were made in anticipation of being cut off from the federal government. So we don't really know anything. It changes day to day. It's like a whipsaw. I wake up one day and I know what I think I know, and by the end of the day, I don't know what I thought I knew. And I'm not the only one that's thinking that. So until they figure out how to run the government, we aren't going to know. Whether the PR is approved tomorrow or not is a big question mark. There's a lot at stake. So we have to be cautious. And I appreciate that you rolled back some things in anticipation of not knowing what we're going to do. We are looking at asking the legislature for potentially we're starting these conversations about asking the legislature for a budget item for the South Slough to assist if need be. But we haven't come to any decision on that. I just want you to know that we're talking about it. We don't want to leave the South Slough stranded without enough budget to operate. So it's all I can say really, because I wish I could be rosy, and Rosie's Arnie's former staffer, but I think they're not rosy at the moment. They're very upsetting and unnerving. I'm done.
The other thing that could potentially be on the horizon is we have within the next year, maybe 2 years, we have 2 more reserves coming on the system. If the piece of the pie, the budget, so to speak, does not increase to cover that, the piece of the pie will be split 32 ways instead of 30 ways. And there's still a potential, even without all of the federal moving happening right now, we could potentially look to lose anywhere from about $75,000 to $125,000 a year. So we're working on looking at alternative funding options, thinking outside of the box. I have one of our staffers looking into what we can do to maybe access some outdoor school funding through the state of Oregon. It definitely matches up with what we do in the education program. We're also, one of the other things that I'm going to be talking with fiscal about is maybe it's time for us to come up with an indirect cost rate that we apply across the board with all of our grants that we apply for. There's pros and cons there. It's never been instituted in the past. And I just want to make sure that how we do move forward on it is not going to be detrimental to us accessing more grants. That's one of the things that tends to become a stumbling block when agency or a university or anyone is applying for a grant is if they have a really high indirect cost rate, it takes half of the grant just to be able to cover those things. So I don't want to put us in a position that we're shooting ourselves in the foot, so to speak. So those are conversations that I'm looking at, as well as alternative funding opportunities to be able to pick up some of the gaps that we could potentially have in the next couple of years, maybe 4 years ish. Let's see here. Cover that. As Vicky said, day to day, the federal funding is changing. I'm actually monitoring all of our awarded grants and looking in the ASAP system, which is the federal drawdown system that we pull our funding from to ensure that our grants are still there and showing that we can pull down money from. At one point in time, we were zeroed out, give or take about $6.5 million in grants that we had been awarded. And we could not draw down at all. So 3 times a week at the minimum, I'm checking balances and making sure that we can still access it. And we've also increased the amount of drawdowns we do a month so that we can get reimbursed quicker than only once a month. Normally we do them right after payroll runs, but recently we've been doing it every other week, sometimes 3 weeks, depending on what's been spent. So.
The governor has asked all agencies to keep her abreast of any time we lose access to our funding, federal funding. So we had that conversation with Rebecca early on, and that's why there's a due diligence at 3 times a week to make sure our funding doesn't disappear.
As of this morning,
Oh my goodness.
we still have money in the bank.
All right, and we have hail. That's a big statement for what we just said. So there you go. All right, back to you.
Okay, other projects and grants we've got going on. The entrance project is kicking off. As some of you might know, we received a little over 1.6 million to relocate the entrance, improve parking, add more safety for our customers as well as staff. Juliana Rubel, I'll introduce her here in a minute. She's our new project manager, and she is actually taking that on and has been working with Civil West, who we currently have under contract to do the engineering and final design on that project. Our goal, this is one of those projects we're trying to move up the timeline on, just to ensure that we don't lose access to that funding. Part of that project also is direct drilling our network from Seven Devils down our driveway into the building so that we no longer have to be wireless. The goal for the wireless drilling is going to be late summer. And then we're hoping early winter to move straight into the construction with the goal of having it all completed and the grant closed out by the end of June of next year. So over the winter, we will have lots of activity here, more so than we normally have. Let's see. Yep, be done.
I want invitation to come back to celebrate that. Boss has been so instrumental in that. So Christine, make sure I put that invitation. Thank you.
Voss on this project. So a little background on how we are funding Juliana as well as Ginny, who's our new administrative assistant that came on recently. It is 100% BIL funding, and those are the types of projects they can only work on at this point in time. boss has generously offered to pay a portion of Juliana's payroll during the entrance project so that she can manage that project in-house. So they will be, we will be invoicing them for a portion of her payroll for the next 12 to 16 months, give or take, so that she can make sure this project gets done. Thank you. Very welcome to have that additional funding. And then the last PAC award, construction award that we still have in place, which we are almost done, is the restrooms, exhibits, and ADA door updates to the visitor center. All of our ADA doors have been installed. We just have a few small things left to adjust on them. And then the final exhibit installation is scheduled to happen the last week in May. And then we will be able to put that grant to bed and be done with all the work. Been a long time coming. Let's see here. Juliana is working on the Wasson Creek Access project, which the goal of that is to return public access to the Wasson Creek after the restoration was started last year. Part of that project is going to be installing a boardwalk out into the middle of the valley, as well as creating a new loop trail that will loop from the upper trailhead down through the valley and then back up to the trailhead. Our goal with that is to make them as accessible as possible. And we're currently in the final stages of determining what materials are going to be used. And the goal of that is to have the project done by the end of this year. Part of that trail work that will be happening, Trail Keepers of Oregon, we have an MOU with them where they will come on site for multiple weekends and do the work in a way that they are going to have volunteers involved, as well as teaching some trail work specific tasks to people who want to sign up to participate in that project. So we're keeping it a community-based trail work projects. Okay, and my staffing updates, I've mentioned them a couple different times. We have Juliana Rubles on staff for project management. She's been on since February 3rd, and she has literally hit the ground running. And it is nice to finally take off my project manager hat and hand it off to Juliana. And then we also have Jenny Hall. She is currently at the front desk covering. Yep, she's our backup front desk person. She's administrative support to a lot of staff, picking up pieces that tend to bury staff when we have special projects and things like that. So it's great having the two. We didn't realize that we had that big gap until all of a sudden they came in and started picking up work, and it's like, oh, wow, that's nice. And then we also welcomed back our seasonal education person this week, Sherry Turner. Her primary goal is working in field trips, summer camp, interpretive programs, and then also assisting with some teacher trainings and community outreach and things like that. She is on for about 7 months a year. She comes on mid-March and then she leaves. Thank you, Jamie. Okay, that's pretty much all the grants and staffing updates. Does anyone have any questions? And I'll just move right into the management plan if not. Okay. Management plan update, it's going to be very quick. Patricia is still working on this. She assigned some duties to Sean while she was out. He is working with staff and getting all of the updates pulled together. And then when she comes back in April, she will finish up everything and she hopes to have it all sent off to NOAA by the end of May. This has been going on for some time. We were set back with some changes in NOAA over the years with what needs to be required in a management plan. If they want to include our boundary update, it went back and forth for about 3 years. We have officially been approved to have the new timeline be 2025 to 2020. And just to kind of, or I'm sorry, 2025 to 2030, I caught myself there. The last one actually expired in 2022. So that's how long we've been working through this process. Any questions on management plan updates? I will just move right into the proposed activity updates. If you remember correctly, last time we met, Patricia brought forth a couple ideas of some proposed activities that we want to start pursuing. One of them was increasing trail accessibility for able challenged persons. And the concept with this is there a way that we can provide a focused trail type tour with a motorized device? That could be maybe a golf cart, maybe some sort of side-by-side that would fit down our trails. We're really limited on our trail size because of our bridges and some switchbacks. If we were to go down this road, there would only be specific trails that this would happen. It would be a tour with a trained staff member involved, and piloting whatever device we decide to land on. Patricia started the discussion with several partners after our last meeting, and South Slough's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee actually offered to assist her in researching the options and gathering information on how we could expand accessibility on the trails for able challenged people. One company they're researching is called Empowering Access. This is a company out of Bend that can conduct on-site assessments of our trail system and provide recommendations, strategies from their findings on what our possibilities could possibly be. Currently, Patricia is waiting to hear back on what type of costs could be involved in this and what the output could look like, what kind of deliverable we would get back.
That's really terrific. You know, if you recall, and you can see it in the minutes here, we talked quite a bit about this last time. And a discussion about whether it could be electric and not motorized, so it wouldn't stink up the place and we wouldn't be adding to pollution. So I was not aware of this company in Bend. That sounds really promising. Because I don't think we are experienced at making those decisions or having the greater vision. So that would be nice. I'll be anxious to hear that.
We actually had a full trail assessment completed. I believe it was in 20 or 21. But it was more directed around pedestrian access and did not include any type of motorized options. So this would go into greater detail on what those options would be for us. We're also going to reach out to Trail Keepers of Oregon, who's one of our partners that we work with on a lot of different projects, and see if they have any information on other, state parks or federal parks that have information on adding this type of opportunity to their trail systems.
I know there's some places, some coastal cities have done that, Arnie, right? Yeah, like maybe Newport, up the coast farther, yeah. They've made it wheelchair accessible, and things like that, so, yeah, we should check the state park.
And I think it's going to become more and more needed. So our Coos Bay Chamber of Commerce now has a David's chair where someone can rent it out and use it for access into our natural areas. Just recently, I believe it was last week or the week before, our park ranger assistant was out doing trail maintenance and came upon a group unloading a motorized wheelchair down on Hidden Creek. And so I think it's becoming more and more needed. It's out there way more than what we have been impacted in the past. I think they're just now starting to filter out. I think the main thing is trying to make sure that we keep safety in mind, because some of our trails definitely are not appropriate. They're very steep. They have tight switchbacks. The bridges and boardwalks are very tight, not wide enough for what is needed for a motorized wheelchair type situation. So I think this is going to be a ongoing conversation until we can come up with a way to solve the problem. Also, in the past, all of our trails have been non-motorized. So if we decide to go down this, there's probably going to have to be some rule changes or updates, and those processes will be needed.
We talked about too, the Coquel Indian tribe has grant funds too we could apply for.
Yeah. We do, as a, annual, community fund.
Yeah. And we could do it in honor of Beth.
Yeah.
We've also actually had some communication. They reached out a couple different times now. Bandon Dunes, their nonprofit, has offered to donate a golf cart to us many times, but we don't have the capacity to figure that out right now. One of the things that we are hoping to try and be a little forward and ahead thinking when we're doing the construction for the entrance, we are going to add in a storage type facility that could potentially house a golf cart or whatever the motorized vehicle we decide to go with, as well as include things that we need already, like a spot for a dumpster and things like that. So those are going to be built into the construction when we do it. It's actually probably going to go into the small parcel that we are land trading with the Lee family with, because it's kind of off and out of, right in the middle of everything. And it would be basically a maintenance spot for storage, whatever motorized type vehicle we could potentially solve this issue with, dumpster, things like that we need here at the visitor center. Yeah, so
Hearing more about that.
more info to come. And then the other thing that Patricia brought at the last meeting was to start researching if we could possibly start charging some fees, at least to be able to cover the costs involved with our drone program if we lend out our drone operator and our equipment to partners, BLM, ODFW, places that might not have the capacity we have. And so she's still in the process of researching other agencies and what policies are already in place. And then at probably the July meeting, we will bring more detail on at least what kind of costs would be involved and how we can add that to our current fee structure. And if you remember right, every other year on even numbered years, we go over and decide what gets added to or update the fees on our fee schedule. So this could potentially, if we can get all the research done this year, come January, February, when we meet again in 2026, we can get it updated at that time in our normal process and plan. Okay, that is the 1, 2, and 3 informational updates on the agenda. The next item is
Rebecca,
action
this,
item. And we discussed this at the last meeting as well, and you gave us some tasks to do.
Hand up.
Cinnamon,
sorry, I was trying to, didn't want to interrupt.
you're
I-
muted.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you,
Oh.
Cinnamon.
The
Oh.
room can't hear me?
Hang on, we turned the volume down here.
Okay.
Go ahead and talk, Cinnamon, see if we
Can you hear me now?
Almost.
Almost. It's okay if you turn me down. How we doing?
Oh, I can hear from the
It-
screen.
Yeah.
I can put
And-
my,
Ted, can you actually turn up the volume on the computer? Maybe that'll help.
I'll see what I can do.
what do we got, everybody? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Awesome.
Yay, thanks everyone. Rebecca, I was just gonna let you know that Travel Oregon has a grant fund out right now as well to improve accessibility. I don't have all the details, but that might be something else to take a look at for funding options.
Definitely a good idea. I'll research that and see how we can plug that in some more. Thank you.
Okay, that was it. Thanks, everyone.
Back to who's going to present on the bitty bitty? You are. You're just talking all day today, aren't you? You can see you've spent time practicing. I see you've got notes,
I
which is
do.
good. All
I
right,
do.
we did talk at length about the bitty bitty last time. You can see it on page 6 of your packet of the notes, but you can refresh our recollection.
And actually, in your packet on page 10
Yes.
is our action item on this. If you remember correctly, bitty bitty, we discussed last time about how this is a highly evasive subshrub and it's actually taking over our maintenance shop. There's really no other means of control on this other than spraying. You gave us a couple different tasks to do some research on, and we reached out to Coos Watershed and their noxious weed specialist, Eric Perry. So his response to our question about frequency, duration, and what type of treatment procedures are included here on 10 and 11, but I'll go ahead and read through those. So Eric's response includes, we have been using the granular herbicide Escort XB at a rate of 0.25 grams per gallon. This rate was recommended to us by Kiri Perosco at ODA. If you convert that to ounces, it's roughly 0.01 ounces per gallon of water sprayed. And we spray at a roughly calibrated rate of 30 gallons per acre with a backpack sprayer. For example, to cover a patch of bitty bitty that is 1/10 of an acre, we only need 0.75 of a gram of herbicide. Along with that, we also use Activator 90 for surfactant at 1%. That has also worked. There is potential for runoff with this herbicide, so it is recommended to not treat if there's rain in 48 hours forecast. Escort is generally safe for people and has an agricultural return entry interval of only 4 hours. We have seen very good, probably around 95% kill rates with this, and found that it works to spray in April or May, and then again in October. What we've been seeing is the season following our first treatment, maybe just a few of the larger plants will survive, but mainly it is just a handful of seedlings that pop up afterwards. So these get sprayed the following season. First treatment, April, second treatment in October. We haven't seen any plants come back after this. So in most cases, you probably will just need the one main treatment with a very small follow-up the next season or the next year. The seeds supposedly remain viable for several years, so you might have to have a few seedlings continue to pop up after these 2 treatments, but those are easily hand pulled. Kuzwa is generally moving away from getting grant funding to treat bitty bitty due to it becoming more common in town, in yards, parks, etc. But we could absolutely help out through a fee for service if we don't have grant funding at the time. So also some of the questions that came up, Commissioner Peterson asked if there would be any issues with cooperative agreements, and no, there would be no issues with that. In fact, on January 25th, Patricia signed another 5-year non-binding agreement with South Coast Coastal Watershed Management Partners. It includes Kuzwa in that, to work together on managing invasive weeds across the boundaries. Since the last meeting, we've actually found bitty bitty in our entrance project boundary. And since we originally talked to you about maintenance only, and that was kind of where we were going at the time, just to get approval for that site, we would like to add the entrance project to your approval. If we start the entrance project currently, like Juliana and I and Mike, we walked around for maybe 20 minutes up there and it was starting to work its way up our legs. It's it can be spread very easily. And I'm worried if we bring construction equipment into the entrance project, which will be starting here shortly, we will spread it all the way down to the visitor center and around. So the entrance project boundary area up there is an additional that I've added since we originally talked about this 4 months ago. But our action today, what we're requesting for you to do is to approve the reserve to spray herbicide or bitty bitty at the maintenance shop as well as a visitor center entrance property as needed to control this noxious plant based on Coos watershed recommendations for application. If you approve us to do this, we will do a fee for service for Coos Water to come out and do that work for us.
I'm trying to look on my phone and I'm having trouble to see what bitty bitty looks like. Did someone bring it in last time? Oh, yeah. Can you bring some in? I'm just curious. It's got an interesting name. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, thanks.
After reading on this, I did a little research on it and it is very invasive and it comes from California basically. And it really likes the coastal areas and it spreads via roots and stem fragments, plus those little burrs they get on everything. So when people walk through the trails and they pick up a burr, I'm picking them off my dog all the time when we go for walks and stuff. And so it can spread very easily. And Cape Blanco apparently has a big program where they're using this particular chemical and manual hand pulling, and they've had really good success with keeping it in check. So it will take over everything and kill anything in this area and become the main shrub. So it probably is a good one to get rid of, or at least limit.
Like if we can spray this spring and then again this October, we would be able to get them down to the point where we could hand pull it on a regular basis.
Robust shrub. So is it like a vine? Or just mat, like a mat? Ground cover. Oh. It's like morning glory. Oh man, I thought morning glory in my yard for years. Just leave a little stem and it's coming back. You want to pass that down for these folks to see? Though Lance is a forester, you've probably seen it out in the forest, right? Yeah. What does the county use it for spray? The same thing? Oh. Okay. Well, this sounds promising, and you did say that Cape Blanco is using it. Okay. Very well. Okay, well, let's get a motion in a second and then we'll have more discussion. Can I get a motion, Madam Vice Chair?
I move that we accept the reserve's recommendation as written on page 11
Awesome. And then is there a second? Okay, Cinnamon seconds that motion. All right, let's have further discussion. Cinnamon, I'll go to you since you're on the screen. Did you have anything to add to this? In support or not in support of the motion?
No, I think due diligence has been done to try to figure out our best options for removal. So it sounds like they've done the work that needs to be done. So I approve.
Okay, any other discussion, Paul?
I believe I heard staff recommending to add the entrance project as well. If that's,
Yes,
could we amend the motion to include that as well?
we can. Yes, because
And in the recommendation written on page 11, it includes both maintenance shop and the visitor center entrance.
okay, all right, so we don't need to amend the motion because that's all written on page 11. Okay, all right, any other discussion? All right, hearing none, let's vote. All those in favor of the recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we've got ourselves an action item taken care of. Thank you so much, and we will contract to get that work done with people who know how to do it. All right.
Exactly.
Okay, the Eddie Covariance Tower, who's going to talk about that?
Sean, would you like to give us a little bit of update on that?
Does Sean have a microphone?
And the information that Sean's going to be covering starts on page 12 in your packet.
This is a group of researchers are interested in putting in an eddy covariance tower, which essentially measures greenhouse gases from marsh decomposition rates. And so you may know that under anaerobic decomposition, methane is produced, and under regular plant growth and animal and bacteria, it also reduces carbon dioxide. So what these group of researchers would like to do is put one of these tower. It's a small tower, maybe we call it a tower, but it's only about 8 feet tall at the maximum, maybe 5 feet around on a platform. They want to put it out in Tom's Marsh, which is kind of close, but not directly adjacent to our meteorological station that we have. And so the goal is to, for about 8 or 10 years, to measure these fluxes of these greenhouse gases to better understand how they're being produced in these tidal marsh habitats. And so this is an informational thing. I don't know if the commission wants to have an action on that to approve it, or if it's necessary, just an information that they'd like to build this tower out there. The information is in the packet. There's not going to be any ground disturbance. It'll be sitting on top of the soil surface, a small wooden platform with a tower and a battery attached to it. But I think the design is in there. So I don't know if there's any discussion, but that's the goal.
Well, Sean, when I was reading this last night, I was thinking this should be an action item that the board, that the commission should vote on whether they want that tower to be built. And I was gonna wait for someone to present the item, and you presented it ably. So let's see if there's some questions about more information, and you have your back to Cinnamon, so she can't see you. I'm gonna start with Cinnamon. Cinnamon, do you have some questions about this?
Yeah, Sean, I would wonder about how long they wanted it up and then about confirming who is responsible for removal at the end of project.
It is, I believe it's 8 to 10 years they're asking for, and maybe shorter. They'll be responsible for moving it. But the way it's designed is that it can be fairly easily removed by just taking the components apart and moving it out. It'll be on concrete blocks. And so there won't be any concrete in the ground. And so everything should be able to be removed piece by piece. And they will do that. And if you want, we can develop a MOU with them for that. But even if, it shouldn't be much of a problem, I don't think, to dismantle it. It's not a large thing, and it's made from components that individual pieces can be removed.
Great, thank you.
It does say on page 13 that the tower requires a footprint area surrounding the tower of relatively homogeneous habitat. across the dominant wind direction. And ideally for a tower, 1.5 meters above the canopy, we would have a tower footprint of 150 meters of marsh in the dominant wind directions. Other landscape features in the tower footprint create some complications in the data, but are probably unavoidable in tidal wetlands. They are. So yes, Tom's Creek and Frederickson Marsh are the two potential sites they're looking at. So have they done a study, or they've just come to you and asked you about it?
They asked about it. They're putting these in several different tidal marshes up and down the coast.
Okay,
This is one of their sites that they would like to put a tower in. And they have gone out with our staff to look for sites, and I believe they do have one selected in Tom's Marsh, which is better for us in that we don't have a lot of infrastructure in there for other things.
okay.
Sean, is there an agreement for data sharing?
I don't think we have an agreement for data sharing, although we could set that up as part of the MOU. That we would share data and they would, but I mean, all these are about, they want to publish papers on it. So data will be shared that way in terms of scientific products.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you all benefit from that work as well.
Yeah, I think that would be good to put into a document.
Okay, those are really good questions, Cinnamon. Let me ask, does anyone else here on the commission have questions? Yes.
After it's built, what is required for maintenance, the footprint of people going back and forth to it? And will public somehow be able to have access? Because if there's a trail or something, how will we make sure it stays a safe place as well?
Yeah, it'll be similar to our Met station that's already in Tom's Marsh. I don't know how often they'd have to access it. I think they're going to have telemetry, and so the data will be sent somewhere. In that case, they don't only have to access it if there's a problem. It'll have solar panels and batteries. So it'll be running off of that normally. And I imagine they only have to go out to visit it if there is something that needs to be fixed or repaired or calibration, something like that.
So will it cost the Slough here, you guys, any money or any of your time and energy per se? Short of
No, it
just help-
shouldn't. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, I don't see that it would. Unless we observe something's wrong, but then we would just contact them. They're over at University of Oregon. And so they could come out pretty quickly and fix things.
Paul,
Really interested, is a very interesting project. I don't know the Tom's Marsh area. I'm new here to this. Yeah, what's the visibility of this location? And what's the sort of educational, if it is visible, is there an educational component with signage to informing visitors of what that is out there in the marsh? And then lastly, is the data that it's collecting somehow an educational component that could be available to the public?
I don't know enough about the project to know what the educational component is. I do know that you probably will be able to see it. Like you can see our Met station off in the distance on one of the trails, but it's not an official trail. It's an extra trail that goes out to Long Island Point. And so it's not in a major area where there are official trails, but you could see it as you walk by the other trail, but it's going to be maybe 100 or 200 feet away from that trail. Like our Met station is. You might be able to see it from kayaking down the Winchester Creek. But again, it would be kind of in a distance. It's not going to be right up next to the bank of that. But yeah, I don't know about the educational potential. Probably there won't be any signage, at least we're not going to put any signage. I don't think they'll be putting any signage out. Again, like our Met station doesn't have signage either. It's not an official trail. I don't know if anyone takes groups out and talks about it. So yeah, I don't know about that.
All that,
Get a learning opportunity for the public about what data is being gathered and what it means. As an example, sometimes when we put solar panels on schools, we'll put a monitor on the inside of the building so that people inside the school building will see how many you know, what is the benefit of that electricity being generated in that way? It's just a looks, it seems like an opportunity for an educational piece.
And in a larger sense, there are we've got a lot of components out there that could have more signage on them. We also host a NOAA weather station that takes up data for climate change that you can see as you go out to Cox Pond, kind of in the distance too. So maybe that's a larger question about how much signage we'd want to talk about all these different components, research, scientific instruments that are out there.
Let me ask you a question. This is called the CARBS Research Project. And then who is the researcher? The entity is University of Oregon, someone at the University of Oregon.
Scott Bridgham is one of the main people on this, as well as several other researchers.
Okay, and when did they want to put this out there?
Well, ideally next month.
Oh,
And so we've been talking in discussion for about 3 or 4 months now. It's a project they initially started maybe a year ago, but they didn't talk about this eddy covariance tower until about 3 months ago, and we started working on that, on what it would look like. And only we got the plans at the end of February, so we could put them into this commission packet.
any other commission member want to speak to this, Laura Beth?
I have the same concerns that Paul had. Number one, it's not visually pleasing to the eye. And so I was hoping it would be tucked away somewhere where it wouldn't be something easily seen. And I understand it's going to be off in the distance, and that's great. I think perhaps a signage of some kind would prevent somebody from being overwhelmed with questions on what is that ugly thing out there. So, it doesn't have to be a permanent sign, but something at least that would answer that question. That's the question I would ask if I was going through is, what are they doing out there? Why couldn't they put that somewhere where we wouldn't have to look at something?
Yeah, well, I should remind, it's not on any major trails. It's not on one of our official trails. You can only see it if you go off on these ancillary trails. And we are a research reserve, and so this is one
Okay,
of the
so
things that we do.
they're not public trails. that
No,
people
no.
are gonna
So the
go on.
location of this is going to be in our more rural end of the reserve, basically at the very bottom of Hinch, and then you'd have a pretty long hike out in undeveloped trails to
Okay.
be able to get access to it. Unless you were, like Sean said, kayaking down the water, that would probably be your closest way of being able to see it, but it's still going to be hundreds of feet away from the water.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely off the beaten path in the rural end of the reserve, not close to this end at all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, Jeannie. Something worth stealing. Yeah.
That was one of our original goals with the exhibit updates is to have the iPad so that we can switch out very easily and affordably without having to redo the whole exhibit with updated information on the research that is happening in the reserve. And so I can see this being a piece of that we develop. And then we will have the flexibility of offering, new and improved research topics and things like that. This could be a big piece of that. The other thing that I'm hearing from everyone is that it sounds like an MOU with the research group is needed. And just a couple of the items that I feel like have been highlights that we need to include in that. And I can work with Patricia if this is something that you guys approve. The MOU would include details about what type of lifespan they're looking at, details on all of their installation processes and the footprint that they're going to be using, focusing on, less impact to the environment in that area. Also details about removal and what they will be responsible for in the future. The maintenance is the next one, where there is no direct cost to the reserve for this being on site. And then the last piece is consideration of data sharing so that we can include that in our education piece to make sure we're informing the public.
So Rebecca, did she miss anything? Anyone? Jessica?
They're out there.
They're planning on installing 4 up and down the Oregon coast in tidal wetlands. I think they have one installed up. I don't even know where that one is. I think they have installed one already and they're working on the other ones.
And Sean, the pictures that you have on page, I think it's 13, are those pictures of the ones that's already installed? Okay.
They're from the installed one.
That one's in
Does it say Tillamook?
on a berm. And those are solar panels. And the large white battery box needs to be elevated to avoid submerging during king tides. And then there's some fencing around it, so.
They would need the fencing for this one, but it'll be on a platform that has to be above the high tides.
Platform details looks like it's on page 14.
Yep. So a wooden platform on concrete blocks with the tower attached and then some boxes for the batteries, solar panels. Well, if somebody stole it, no, I don't think we have any liability for compensating or any security. And we have been pretty lucky with our Met station that we haven't had much vandalism to that. Maybe because it's far enough out in the marsh where people don't want to trudge out to it. I don't know.
I think that would be a good thing to add to the MOU as well, though,
Yeah.
just so that we are not responsible for it and make sure it's very clear that the responsibility of theft or any type of damage to the equipment is on University of Oregon, not on South Slough.
Yeah, we can have Sharon in our office puts together these documents and we can have legal review if we need it. But let me say at the Shutter Creek facility that we're using as the Elliott State Research Forest site this week and probably next week, we entered into an agreement with Camas Valley Fire Department to come and get all that razor wire that we don't need it to look like a prison anymore. So they're taking the inner fencing and the razor wire for free, but we had to work out an agreement with them that, if someone gets injured, it's not our fault. And, we're not liable and all of this. And that didn't take too long. Sharon managed all that. And then that razor wire is going to be gone because they need it, because people were coming into the fire department and destroying things and stealing things. So this is collaboration and cooperation between government entities, and I like it. So anyway, I think if we have our staff in Salem look at creating the MOU, And make sure we get sign off on that. So we could have a motion to approve pending, the, creation of an MOU or other document, like-minded document. Since they want to do it next month. They have to wait for us. Yeah.
So move.
Hey, you're gonna, okay, she moved my motion. I made the motion, that will approve the, installation of the tower. Provided we, come to agreement on an MOU or a like-minded document that we create and have signed. And there's a second, okay, and any further discussion about that? We had a lot of discussion here and I really like it, Jamie. That was such a great idea. When I came in today, I saw the iPad on the front desk. And I don't think it's been there before, right? Yeah, and I got to see the bear and the coyote or whatever that was, and that's really cool. And to make that part of an ever-changing exhibit is great. What is the research that's going on out here? Because we hear about what you all are doing. We hear a lot about Wasson Creek. We don't know about some of the other things that you all are working on, Jenny. We know because we get our information. Excuse me, but it would be nice to have an ever-changing screen. Here's what we're doing in South Slough. So great idea. Sure. All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Boom, we got it. Sean, so you will need to work with Rebecca and these folks. Make it legal. Okay. Rebecca, what else do we have?
I believe it's time to move on to information reports. And the first one on the list is administration and facilities, and I think I've talked enough today. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it down to Jamie for an update on education.
All right. If you want to learn about administration and facilities beyond what Rebecca said today, you can see it in your notebook.
Yep.
All right. Jamie, where'd you go?
I'm gonna try this one. It's working.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But then I need my notes to remember. So I think, I mean, really everything is in your packets, but since November, we've had our regular public programs going on. So that's in the winter, a lot of times the mushroom identification, which is still incredibly popular, birding and crabbing events for the public, and those are all affected by the weather. So they happen when it's not pouring, and if not, those things get canceled. Classes for schools are scheduled less regularly because it's a lot harder to plan and cancel those than a public program. We've also had, I think this winter, and maybe Sean was going to say this might be stealing it, but several classes from SWAC and OIMB who had a winter session come out and work with the science team on different, learn about things from the science team and some of the education team. I wanted to mention that Sabra and I, the Coastal Training Program Coordinator, did submit a proposal to the Science Collaborative to conduct a market analysis and needs assessment for the reserve. So we'll hear about that if that continues to be a source of funding and we get funded. And then as another education project that we're a part of, also with our swamp staff, our water quality monitoring staff, we submitted an application to do some swamp stuff with the Alaska Reserve, around education and teacher professional development. Other things that are happening right now are intern recruitment. So our fearless intern public involvement coordinator is leading us through intern recruitment, where we're hoping to have several interns this summer who work with both the science and education team. So some folks will work with Jenny and I, and some with Ryan from the restoration team, and then also summer camps. And then the main thing I wanted to highlight was our after school program. So folks saw Stacy this morning, which is the Estuary Explorers after school program, supported in part through AmeriCorps. And it's just continued to grow. It's really nice to have a person 2 years in a row helping build sustainability for that project. So I think Stacy's had 4 sessions and then some groups that continually ask her to come back, so she gets to go to a bunch of places, and then some upcoming some final programs this spring. And we also get to have high school interns work with that program, so it's just a really nice all-around way to bring the estuary to the community. That's all I think I have.
Thing to note about the AmeriCorps position and the programming that Stacy does, that position is 100% funded by FOSS. They covered it for last year, which is Stacy's position, and they've agreed to cover for another year after that. So we're very thankful for that assistance, because it's one of those things, if we didn't have it, unfortunately, our after school programming would probably have to go away. So very thankful for that funding from FOSS.
People will depend on that program. Thank you, Jamie. And I do want to say that I met with Katrina yesterday, Scotto DiCarlo from our office, who works with you all on the communications piece. And she showed me the document she prepared for Ellie from our staff to take to DC for the NER conference and trainings and outreach to Capitol Hill. And I saw that it was really great. I saw a picture of Luke. I don't remember his last name, Donaldson. As a child, his mother had it when he came here for story time. And then he became a volunteer and went through high school and became a volunteer. And he is now at Oregon State University, I think, where he's in charge of something, but he's done extremely well. And he's just a great story to tell while she goes back to Washington, D.C. Ellie is our government relations director. And you probably know her, Arnie. She used to be Elizabeth Steiner's staff, Ellie Fornes. We got her after Elizabeth left. She's going instead of Patricia, because Patricia can't travel yet. And I'm hoping it's a successful trip. We pay to have someone provide us some services in Washington, D.C., and he has managed for all of those appointments for Ellie. So I think we're gonna have a story to tell, especially about our funding. So anyway, that's great.
It's a good story.
Yeah. All right, coastal training. I didn't see Sabra.
He is actually out today, so we're going to go ahead and move on to science. Sean, did you have any updates?
Okay. There you go. Okay.
Announcements or highlights, I guess, from the research side. In the packet, there's the green crab information. So from last year, we do a annual report each year. The bad news is the numbers are up. And with the El Nino event, we also have higher recruits than we've had in the past too. And so on the negative side, we have more green crabs. It's an invasive crab species that eats all sorts of bivalves and other crabs and anything it can really. And the numbers are going up. One of the positive notes is that we applied for we partnered with Southwestern Oregon Community College, SWOC, and partnered with our agroecology program to get a sea grant, funding grant, to look at how we can use those green crabs in commercial or recreational use, and hopefully reduce the numbers through simple using green crabs as crabs and eating them, or using them for compost or other things. And so we have a project we'll start this summer with SWOC to try to develop those. Hopefully a commercial potential, and maybe that might help reduce the numbers without having to pay bounties or other sort of systems to reduce the green crab numbers. Another thing is some good news. Jenny leads our Western Lily monitoring program. Back in 2017, I think it was, there was a bunch of work done at a property on South Slough to reduce the cover of the trees and shrubs. so that the western lily, which is an endangered species, can flourish, do better. And ever since, we've been doing monitoring of that. And last year, the numbers were up. They're about double what they were in the beginning. So the numbers are increasing for the plants, including the vegetative and the adult plants. Flowering was down a little bit last year, but I don't know if it's significant or not, but it looks like it's a good thing. We may need to go back and see if we need to do any more management, keep that area open to increase the number of those endangered plants. So good news there. Another item to talk about that's kind of interesting is that for years, we've been working on the Partnership for Coastal Watersheds that Jenny chairs. And through that have kind of developed this hydrodynamic model, including money from the Research Reserve Science Collaborative funding opportunity, the funding system, I guess, that gives grants to reserves to do scientific projects. And that hydrodynamic model has done a lot of stuff. What's interesting recently is that a researcher at Louisiana State University, Matthew Brand, has done a project looking at the effect of tidal wetland restoration on flooding under sea level rise, and basically found that you can reduce flooding to the city of in Pacific Coos Bay by increasing tidal wetland restoration. And that works by trying to get all that flooding water, rather than flooding and raising the level. If you have these wetlands that are connected to the system, they will provide extra repositories for that water. So that water will go there rather than flooding into Coos Bay. And he published a paper on it recently. So I'll just send it down this way. And what's, I guess, even more interesting about that perhaps is that they were using some data for the levees in Coos Bay. The data they're using was from a 2014 study that used what's called aerial LiDAR. So a plane flew overhead and determined the elevation of the surface of those levees using this technique, which has some error to it. And so they found out in this paper that very small differences in elevation made a big difference in the flooding levels. So Jenny and Jennifer went back just a few months ago, took new data using a very expensive real-time kinematic GPS surveying system that was funded by NOAA. So that equipment came to us. We used it to ground truth those points and found that actually those levees are about 20 to 30 centimeters lower than what used in the paper, which greatly changes that. And so rather than significant flooding occurring in 2080, now we expect it'll occur in 2050. So it makes a big difference. And I guess I propose that it's a really interesting partnership through the Partnership for Coastal Watersheds, money from the reserve system, staff from the reserve working with scientists to develop these models for flooding in the city of Coos Bay. And that will also manage to refine those models over time. And it tells us ways we can fix the problem or ameliorate the problem using wetland restoration, and also the importance of using equipment to actually determine accurately the elevations of these things. I think it's a pretty kind of a long story, but it took over a decade to come to fruition, and it's still being improved. Now they intend on perhaps writing a second paper to show that what in this paper was before that change in the elevation was noted. And we don't know why the elevation has changed. Perhaps it could be subsidence, or it might just be error in the initial measurements. So that's an interesting story, I think, to tell. Yeah, and that's my my update. So I'll take any questions. Yeah, they're on the Partnership for Coastal Watershed, and includes planners and tribal representatives and a large group of interested people. Lance?
Put your speaker on, Lance. Please. Thank you.
Nino had to do with the crab population. You said it rose up because of El Nino.
So what happens with the green crabs is that the life cycle includes a larval stage, which floats in the plankton of the ocean. And a lot of our larvae come from San Francisco Bay, and they're right up on the Davidson Current during the winter months. And so El Nino increases the current speed. So the warmer water means a higher current speed, and that allows more of those larvae to travel up the coast further. And that's why we get more during an El Nino event. And so that's when initially a lot of our larvae came in. Now they're coming from everywhere, but that's why we get more during El Nino.
On page 37, that the eelgrass pilot transplant project at Velino Island was seeing some success. Jenny, are you involved in that one? Allie's doing that one. She's not here today. I just thought that was great. Because it's really hard to.
Eelgrass, it's still growing better at lower elevations and not so well at higher. So we know that it does better lower in the tidal prism.
That's really good news. And the eelgrass that was being destroyed, I think it was up near Astoria from mechanical oyster harvesting. That's not happening anymore because the business that was doing that had no permit to do it. And so the Army Corps asked to see the permit and they quickly shut down. They were just ripping the heck out of the eelgrass. So I have a really close relationship with eelgrass for some reason. It came up a lot in the Jordan Cove project, which may not be dead. Someone is, Mike, I got your email. I just haven't had a chance to respond, but I had actually heard about it. Someone is trying to resurrect that project by asking Court of Appeals to say that the states don't have anything to say about it. So, yes, they're saying that Oregon state law doesn't matter. And it's what President Trump wants. So we'll see where that goes. I'll be retired. I can't live through a second Jordan Cove attempt. But.
And maybe one other information, some information that might be interested in is that the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan revision is just starting, and they've gotten their work groups together, and a number of us in this room are on that. Mike and Christine and myself, I think. So we're all going to be helping with some technical and public input on that plan.
Oh, that's good. I think it's sort of like our management plan. It's a little behind. We should have had it done earlier, but everybody's busy. I get it. Okay, so the Coos Bay management plan, you're involved in that. Okay, awesome. All right, any other questions of Sean? I love reading all about all these projects and all these published papers too. Jenny, I saw your name on one of these. Yeah, more than one. So yeah, and I see Sean. So yeah, this is really, I know you spend some time, your team spends time putting this together, but I just want to thank you because I appreciate it. Okay, thanks, Sean. Let's see, what do we got? We have Alice next. Talk about stewardship, and I'm sure Wasson Creek is part of that conversation.
I'm surprised you still want to hear about Wasson Creek. You've gotten a lot of updates over the years.
Turn a little bit, so there you go. Cinnamon was looking
Maybe I
at you
can
back.
Cinnamon, can you still hear me okay if I put that down? Okay, great. So I guess I should start with the Wasson Creek update. As you know, last year we saw a lot of big changes, and these were largely due to contractors working down on the site. And during this reporting period, I wanted to highlight the community connections that we've been building with the Wasson Creek project. So after those contractors came in and did the big heavy lifting, we've really been making a lot of efforts to try and get the people of our community connected with the project. So as part of that, we've had our Saturday stewards come out there and help with building nurse cribs, which are a way of reestablishing tidal forested swamps. We've had our SWOC restoration class come out and do some tours of the area. OIMB coastal class has come out and helped with nurse cribs and invasive species management. We've had Blossom Gulch Hispanic and Tribal Youth Program through Stacy's Estuary Explorers Program come out, and let me tell you, It is really adorable to see little 6-year-olds digging out thistles. I think that was like my highlight of the year. They were so excited. They were running around with spades together and partnering to dig them out, and it was really fantastic. They had a great time. I think Jamie's going to incorporate that into her regular summer camps, maybe, to help us keep those thistles under wraps. We also had the Coos Watershed Association bring their youth group, which is the Destinations program, out. And so they came out and they planted willows up in the valley, and also helped with some challenges that we've been having up there to sort of stay on top of the restoration work. And that was fantastic. And then this also includes working with the tribes and co-stewardship. So we had Confederated Tribes of the Coos Law, Umpqua, and Sayus Law Indians run a joint co-stewardship program with us here at the reserve. We had Kakwel tribal staff and members come and participate in that. And that was just really successful and a fantastic 2-day event where we got started on a traditional garden down in Wasson, and we're continuing to work with the tribes to develop that traditional garden, make sure that it is usable by tribal citizens as well as accessible through time. And so I'm really excited about that program continuing. And then we also have tribal youth in the other programs that I mentioned came out with the Destinations group and the Blossom Gulch group as well, which was exciting. And then we've been providing restoration education opportunities for restoration practitioners. So we had people coming out and learning about nurse cribs and tidal forested swamp restoration and getting hands-on experience with building those cribs. And people are really excited about those hands-on experiences. And so we're getting people traveling from all over coastal Oregon. We also have people coming in from Washington and Alaska for some of our restoration programs. So people are excited. We've got a few more coming up. We've got a nurse cribs program coming up in April, and then a biochar program coming up later in the year after fire season. So that's been really fun having those connections.
It's amazing how many people like to get their hands dirty and dig
Yeah.
and pull and chop, and they love it. So
Yeah.
that's great. You're creating more opportunities for exercise.
One thing is we do run a monthly stewardship program, and Jeannie Stanley from FOSS has been partnering with us on that year. And I'm always surprised, at the beginning of a Saturday, I always think, oh, grumble after work on a weekend. And then by the end of the program, just had such a great connection with people, and people are thanking me. And I'm like, well, I got you to work for 2 hours, but you can thank me if you want. The last thing that I wanted to note is just, it's grant writing season. So I've been heavily involved in a couple of neuroscience collaborative grants. These are both submitted by other reserves. So one is through the Connecticut NER and has around 10 reserves on this project, but I was a key writer on the grant. And so that's on coastal watersheds include Uplands 2, developing standardized upland monitoring protocols for the NER system. And so that's really exciting if we can get that one funded. We'll host some practitioners coming to the reserve here and learning from our monitoring that we're doing here, as well as standardizing methods. The second one is reigniting fire stewardship across reserves and local landscapes. And that will provide funds for tribal partners and reserve staff to collaborate with around 8 other reserves and their tribal partners to really support conversations and knowledge sharing and engagement around introducing fire as a restoration tool and reusing fire in appropriate situations. And so that would be starting a conversation at the reserve as a potential restoration method, say for the Western lilies or other habitats that were for a very long time managed with fire. So that's an exciting opportunity as well. And that's it from me.
Any questions? Don't you want to come out here and do some work? Yeah, come out here and volunteer on the weekend. Aha. Arnie, our newest board member is loving this. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Deb, you're not on the agenda, but I want to hear from you because Katrina was telling me about the ambassador program and how we're giving value to that, the volunteers. Can you come up and use the microphone? Trying to find a way to get people to do some of this work of cabling and stuff that you do so much of, so you can do other things. So how's this working out?
So we're getting ready to embark a new facet of our volunteer program. We have about 30 regular volunteers. And as Alice just mentioned, we have our Saturday Stewards program where folks come out and help with various stewardship projects on the reserve. So the ambassador program would be a subset of that, where we'll take some of our regular volunteers who know the reserve well and know a lot of our goals and what our principles are, and we'll partner them. They will mentor new people who will become what we're going to call estuary ambassadors. And Katrina and I are going to roll out the program early in April. We'll meet in town and we'll have hopefully some new folks decide to come on board. And basically what these folks will do is to help myself and our other staff. Often we're requested to come what we call table at a variety of different events. There's a lot of fairs and festivals and community things. And while I love doing that, it's fantastic, I can't help but sit there and think, well, I have a whole bunch of other work I need to be doing while I'm sitting here talking to people at the farmer's market. So having more, we do have some volunteers that do this, but they need a lot of hand holding and help. So by developing this program and providing our volunteers with some formal trainings where they'll really have confidence when they're speaking to the public about the reserve, and to make it enjoyable for them, we'll provide some enrichment classes periodically where maybe one of our science staff will do a presentation that's just for them, or maybe we'll have a guest speaker and they get to have lunch with that person and ask them questions. So it'll be kind of a special cohort of volunteers. So if you're interested or know of anyone who's interested, and students would also be welcome to participate in this. So this is, a lot of it takes place over the summer when kids are out of school. So we have hosted high school students in some of these applications when we've had interns. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. I wasn't exactly prepared to speak on that today, but that is something that hopefully by the next commission, I'll be able to report how many we have and how many events we've started assigning to volunteers.
Put you on the spot, but Katrina told me about it yesterday and I was ecstatic. I said, what a great idea. And they'll get little badges, you know, they're like docents, you know, at a museum. They get to show you around, and then they are really invested in what we do here. But most of our volunteers are already anyway, but it just gives them, I like that little special opportunity that the science staff might present to them, or they get a special speaker, or maybe even the governor comes down here again. And yeah, that's just way cool. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, we are down to Friends of South Slough. Christine, are you gonna do this one? Todd's on his way to DC next week or the week after. He's gonna go with Ellie to DC.
Yeah, that's in our report. That's a very important visit, and Todd is very good at this kind of outreach, and having somebody that's a retired federal employee on that will be very valuable as well. Hopefully we still have our pensions by the time that happens. So in that light, I really want to shout out, and I did in the report, our Attorney General, Dan Rayfield, for joining the other Attorney General to work to stop freezing federal appropriated funding. It's really important, and I can say that as a volunteer and not an employee right now. That is going to potentially be a huge impact on all of us throughout the nation. So standing strong and telling the truth is really, really important. And I think Todd will help tell the truth on his visit. Most of the things that we are doing is covered in your report. I want to shout out to Jeannie for stepping up with the Saturday Stewards. And for those of you that want to know more about FOSS, is we're only able to do this if people donate to FOSS, so that we have the ability to help the reserve with funding staff and funding these things. We in light of the financial situation, we really had some serious strategic planning. And I know there's members of the staff that weren't happy with some of our decisions because we backed away from helping fund a lot of interns. We had to prioritize where that kind of funding needed to go. And so we've placed it, we think, in very appropriate ways to keep things going. So anyway, I'm talking to the choir here, but hopefully you have a message to take to your colleagues as well. And as a volunteer with FOSS, we really encourage all kinds of funding opportunities that can make it possible for us to survive and help do strategic planning with the reserve. And we really believe this entrance project is huge priority for safety, for being able to have a seminar here and have internet, but also just for the safety of everyone. So it's a pleasure to be with you. We really care about this institution, and we're really proud of the fact that it was #1 in the nation, and we want to keep it that way. Just the end of this, since this is, I think, the last report. FOSS is sponsoring a little reception here, and we want to congratulate Vicki and thank her for her fabulous support. And we're looking forward to seeing who comes out of the review for this. And we have a number of other things that we want to recognize here today, but we want to be #1 in the future, and we need the support from DSL. I think the new strategic planning to have some partnerships, some other friends. You might want to even speak to those concepts that can be used to support the enrichment of understanding research and how it can apply. And I was listening to these comments today, but when we're talking about economic impact, the economic impact of all of the things that Deb's talking about with all these programs, we've tried to capture some of that. But I think it's also important, having sat through a really great economic course that Noah put on at SWAC last week, is we need to understand what the economic impact of not doing these things is, and the costs in the future. And so that's the end of my presentation. And I think we've got a couple more things to go on right now. We want to present you with a plaque honoring your assistance, your support, and never-ending voice in Salem and keeping us here. You've been here since 2018, and I think all of us will be very sad to see you go. So a little picture of the reserve for you to take.
Oh my goodness, I think this is the sweet, and I love that picture. I I love the South Slough. Um, you know that it was one of my tasks when they hired me to find another manager for the South Slough. They wanted to ditch it from DSL, and I had three tasks. That was one of them. Moving unclaimed property to Treasury was the second one, and handling and dealing and with the Elliott State Forest. Wow. So we did a lot of work and research on what the South Slough meant. And I said, this is an underutilized resource here at DSL. They're doing such wonderful things here that are a part of what we do. And we shouldn't find another manager. And we couldn't anyway. No one seemed to be too interested, and I was glad for that. Yeah, I know. The universities didn't want it because they thought they'd be stuck with having to fund it. But, you know, you've gone from, it was 60-40, 60% state funded and 40% federal funded. And we worked very hard. You all worked very hard to change that funding model. And it does this up and down, but very hard for our brains. Yeah. But I also think that it was enlightening the other staff in DSL that you're part of DSL down here. The staff is part of DSL. And so now they have actually come down here. They've integrated with you. Hopefully you've had a chance to do some things with them. And I don't know, we put it on the radar. And I have to tell you, and former Senator Roebling could probably tell you, everybody at the Capitol loves South Slough. They just love it. When we do our budget hearing, we get to that part in the budget hearing and they're just all over the South Slough, how wonderful it is. And so it is a treasure. It is an absolute treasure. And, you know, it started when I graduated high school. So there were my forebearers at the legislature had the wherewithal to set it up, but they didn't really fund it. So that became a problem. And Mike, you've lived through those funding nightmares, but you know, I think we're on a good track. Now I'm just very concerned about the federal government piece. I knew there would be chaos, but I didn't think it would be chaos like this. So, and I'm not sure we all knew it was going to be like this, but anyway, this is my first retirement moment. I'm
sorry, but you're welcome.
I think I'm 97 days out. I have an app on my phone. I'm not counting. The app on my phone comes up every day, and I was at months, and now I'm in days. And 90, I think it's 97. It was 99 days on my way to Ben, and so I sang the song in the car. 99 bottles of you know what on the wall. But this I'm gonna miss this a lot. But the cool thing is, I'm going to bring my grandchildren and I'm going to visit a lot. So my father passed away this last year, so I don't get to come and visit with him, my stepfather. But it was really weird driving down the road today and I looked at his street and I'm like, should I turn down the street and just say hello? I'm going to do it on the way home. But, you know, I have friends. I have friends and tribal friends and all kinds of friends, and you are included in that. So thank you. Thank you. We need to adjourn. So yes, you can. My second everything she said.
It's been interesting over the last couple of months with environment stuff. We're getting through one day at a time.
Yeah, and she sends an email out, waving the flag when she needs to. And we have a meeting. So, we feel very confident and very fortunate that we have all of you serving on this commission. This has been a great commission. Have really appreciated working with you, and I think Senator Roeblen is going to be a great force on this commission too. So your next scheduled meeting is July 23. I'm hoping to be vacationing somewhere. I'm not sure where, but my husband and I are celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary, June 21, but we're not going anywhere because we all get together in Nescoin for the 4th of July around that time. So we're thinking about what we're going to do in September, maybe, and maybe go back to where we honeymooned in Banff, Canada, if Canadians will let Americans across the border, because they're so angry with us right now. But their prime minister keeps saying, we know it's not the American people. So I'll leave it at that. I won't get any more political than that. And if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I think I'll take a motion to adjourn. You've got something?
I do, and I think the only big question mark on that next scheduled meeting is Vicky's replacement and making sure that it fits. And that person is on by then and ready to have a meeting. Do you think that's?
I'm glad you raised that because there's a national meeting, National Association of State Trust Lands, that I'm president emeritus of, and they have to go to that. And it's in July.
So it could be up for changing.
It might. I gotta
Next,
look up the dates.
next date is pending.
Yeah, I just need to look up the date because that person would need to go. And let me speak to the recruitment, and thank you, Christine, for Foss's contribution. We developed a list of desired attributes by talking to staff, reaching out to our stakeholders, our partners. I've been talking with some of the tribes. I have a meeting with Brendan next week. Actually, next week or the week after, I can't remember. It's on my schedule. Trying to make sure that we know what you all are looking for in the next director. And the recruitment closes the 30th of this month. So far, yesterday, there were 14 applicants. And of course, there are some federal employees. We're trying to help these federal employees that are losing their jobs. We've hired 2 feds for the Elliott State Research Forest. And then once that recruitment closes, then there'll be a selection process, an initial selection process that includes me, the representative from the governor's office, and then Allie on my staff, who's helping run and coordinate the recruitment. So I get a role in this, and you can bet that I'm looking for someone who's going to be passionate and care. And then there's a lot of interviews. There's a whole process. It's on our website if you want to learn how it's going to be done. And then June 10th is land board meeting. June 9th, the land board is going to meet either in executive session or individually with the finalists and make a decision at their land board meeting on June 10th. And let me tell you that we're in the planning stages, but we're thinking about having that at Shutter Creek to do an open house for Elliott. So we'd have land board in the morning and an open house in the afternoon with a luncheon in the middle, like we did here for the 50th celebration. But we're still planning it, so don't count on it yet, but it seemed to be the most reasonable option. And so that would be really great if that happens. And then we'd announce and hopefully the person who's selected would be there. But we're trying to keep you all involved. And I don't know if anyone's reached out to you yet, Paul, but if we do that open house, we really want involvement, people to table it, like, the ESD could table it and tell what you do for school kids around here. We would have Patty from the college come and table about what the college program can offer. We'd love some tribal involvement. It's all in the early planning stages, so just know you might get a phone. Okay, anything else for the good of the order? If not, Madam Vice Chair, you have a motion for me?
I'll move to adjourn this 170th meeting of this Management Commission.
And is there a second to that motion? Okay, there's no debate on that motion, so all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you ever so much.